In this construction, you are going to learn how to construct a point called the centroid, which is the intersection of all medians within a triangle. As you may recall from earlier in the year, a median is a line that is formed from the vertex to the midpoint of the opposing side. For this construction, we're going to use a lot of what you learned in construction 4 about how to construct a perpendicular bisector. However, we're not actually going to draw the full perpendicular bisector. We're simply going to use it to find these midpoints. So I'm going to go ahead and label our triangle GHI. And I'm going to go ahead and find, again, the midpoint of each of these sides. So again, using construction 4, I'm going to go ahead and make my 4 arcs. And using your straight edge, we're not going to draw the whole line. We're simply going to line it up where my arcs intersect and figure out where the midpoint of my side would be. So you can see by my marking, there's the midpoint for side IH. I'm just going to simply put in that dot for right now. We'll come back to it in just a second. Go ahead and repeat this process to find the midpoint of the other sides. So I'll do side GH. So there's our second midpoint. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing for IG. So now that we have all 3 midpoints, we have enough to draw our medians. And if our midpoints are in the correct spot, we draw our medians accurately, they should all intersect at the same point. So my first median, I'll draw from my vertex G to the opposing midpoint. And I'll do the same thing from I. And then lastly, from H. So you can see all 3 of these lines intersect at the same point. Just as frames of reference here, we'll call these midpoints here X, Y, Z. And I'll call my centroid here C. Now the other thing we can do with this, beyond just creating this point, we actually can do some basic math in that the centroid is 2/3 the distance from each vertex to the midpoint of the opposing side. So what that means is I can look at each of these larger segments and be able to find their measurements if I'm given the right pieces. So I could say that IC is equal to 2/3 the total length of IY, as the centroid is 2/3 of the distance from the vertex. That also means the midpoint itself on the opposing side is 1/3 of the distance the way across. So I could say CY is 1/3 the total segment IY. I could then also apply this to the other 2 medians that I have. So I could say GC is equal to 2/3 GZ, and CZ is equal to 1/3 GZ. And then finally, HC is equal to 2/3 HX, and CX is equal to 1/3 HX.